My name is David Tuma, and in my journey, I've had the privilege of working with some incredibly smart people. And I'm so grateful to have so many of them here today. I am truly standing on the shoulders of all of you giants. Um, and I have worn a lot of hats over the years, but ultimately, I'm a software engineer at heart. And the bulk of my work has been in the field of high maturity, agile methods. Now, that may not be a familiar phrase to everyone, and to some, it may seem like a contradiction in terms. And of course, to others, them's fighting words. And so that's why we're here today, is to explore the beauty of how these two things interact. Now, I may not be the best coach, but I have been told that I'd make a great marriage counselor. Um, One of the reasons for that is that I strive to see things from multiple perspectives and try to put myself in other people's shoes. And I find that a surprisingly common trigger for conflict is that words are imprecise. They mean different things to different people. Um, People can argue for hours, months, or years without realizing that they're using the same word to mean two different things. So, one skill of coaching or counseling is stepping back and detecting that semantic disconnect and helping both sides see things from the other's perspective. Now, we have an incredible cohort of people here today from both the Agile and the high maturity communities. So I'm going to try to do the impossible and give a presentation today that speaks to everyone. So as your marriage counselor, I'm going to ask you to keep an open mind, reconsider your biases, and be willing to revisit the definitions of words that you thought you already knew, including Agile, process, and high maturity. So to start, let's talk about our shared history. Heavyweight process methodologies were a big thing in the 1990s. I was a part of an organization that had this problem. We were striving to become CMM level 3, and we created thousands of pages of process along the way. And anytime a project failed, something would be added to the process to make sure that particular failure didn't happen again. So the process just got bigger and bigger. And somehow, inexplicably, in spite of all of those best intentions, that somehow didn't keep our projects from failing. So, in the middle of all this churn, Watts Humphrey and the team at the Software Engineering Institute released the Personal Software Process, or PSP, and the Team Software Process, or TSP. Now, these breakthrough ideas brilliantly showed that a CMM level 5 process could fit on a few sheets of paper. It was possible for a process to be mature and lightweight at the same time. And these processes had remarkable results in cost and schedule predictability, faster delivery, 100 times higher quality. I got to be a member of a project that used this, and it was life-changing. And at that moment, along with many others in this room, I personally made an outrageous commitment to change the world of software engineering by promoting the broader use of these ideas. Now, meanwhile, the brilliant folks in the Lean community were hard at work, and the Agile Manifesto was released in 2001. It was just as revolutionary and brilliant, a complete reimagining of customer engagement, strategy, implementation, and delivery. It is impossible to understate the effect the Agile movement has had on software, on engineering, and on business as a whole. And as an industry, we owe Agile methods for tremendous gains in productivity and customer satisfaction. Now, these two approaches solve the heavyweight problem in two very different and orthogonal ways. And interestingly, because they are orthogonal solutions, they can be used together to achieve mind-blowing results. And we can both learn from each other. But it's not a walk in the park. TSP adoption takes work. And as many of you know, Agile transformation is hard. There are software teams that are pursuing Agile run into countless barriers from customers, from the rest of the business, from federal acquisition laws, you name it. They're constantly having to swim upstream to keep their Agile wins. And many things claim to be Agile, but really aren't. They'll, they'll pick up some buzzwords, but not fundamentally change. Now, unfortunately, the vocabulary and shape of the team software process makes it look like one of those things that didn't really change. So when an agilist sees our process definitions, they're inclined to reject them right away at Waterfall. I mean, they've been burned by faux agile entities in the past. So the burden of proof is on us, the high maturity community. So let's clarify, what is Waterfall? Now, I'm going to put my marriage counselor hat back on and say, it isn't important what the word means to me. If somebody thinks I'm Waterfall, I need to understand what the word means to them. So Waterfall, I would say, is a catch-all word describing the non-agile methods of the 1990s. But generically, it can refer to any methodology that takes months to deliver to the customer. In the context of our processes, though, it was often the idea that you would spend a big block of time, like say 3 months to a year, working on requirements. And then you'd spend a big block of time working on high-level design, and so on and so on. Now, for a more detailed illustration, I'm going to pull a very embarrassing example from the historical set of TSP training materials. In this, the 2007 TSP practitioner says, I'm doing cyclic development. And of course, the Agilist quoting Princess Bride says, you keep using that word. I do not think it means what you think it means. So I'll say, ouch. But in fairness, this is how software development was taught for many years. And it was a classic way to interpret the CMM KPAs for requirements management, change management, et cetera. And I'll just stress, this was a slide from 20 years ago. Shortly after, the TSP training slides did evolve, and this one went away and was replaced with like a more agile workflow. But within the TSP community, it's possible that not everyone got the memo. So just to make sure that we're all on the same page, I would like to offer a cheat sheet and stress that TSP and Agile do align remarkably well, especially on the core values of self-directed teams, strong customer focus, and work-life balance. Now, I'll point out that these were not inherited from our heavyweight predecessors. So we both came to these shared values honestly. One of the minor areas of difference is that Agile methods almost universally espouse rapid iterative development, while TSP officially remains agnostic so that it can be used with other development strategies. Now, the remaining rows in this table list concepts that align fairly closely. Now, the words differ, but I do want to point out that TSP takes things to another level with an entire toolkit of powerful concepts to supercharge plans, actions, and retrospectives. In particular, the bottom here, a TSP repeatable process is an incredibly powerful thing. I would say definition of done is the closest Agile concept, but a repeatable process gives us so much more. Now, unfortunately, it's these process definitions that can sometimes give Agilists the jitters, partially because they bear a resemblance to things that shall not be named from the 90s. But processes don't need to be scary. Let's reflect on the Agile Manifesto. We're familiar with the line, individuals and interactions over processes and tools. But the manifesto makes it clear they all have value, including the processes. We just need to remember the priorities. I believe Matthew Jacobs is here with us today, and I love how he put this. He said, both are important, but the things on the right are there to serve the things on the left. And this is where high maturity Agile processes really shine. They were re-engineered from the ground up to serve individuals and their actions, not the other way around. And although they do share nouns and verbs with processes from the 90s, they differ from classic waterfall by orders of magnitude in size. We're talking about spending hours in design, not months. That difference helps Agile processes avoid the key feeling of waterfall, because if you can complete all the steps of a lightweight Agile process in a single day, or at the very worst, within a single sprint, you haven't jeopardized the Agile goal of rapid delivery to the customer. So I say, Don't let the shape of the process fool you. It's the size and speed that matters. And also, I'd say, you don't become agile by shaping your work like a blob. You do it by shaping it like an arrow. So now, speaking of shape, I'd like to maybe pause and offer a suggestion to my high maturity counterparts. Um, we're really used to listing process steps vertically, like you see on the left. But swim lanes, as they appear in Kanban boards, are a much more universally recognized way of depicting agile workflows. Um, using this visualization not only captures your process, but helps convey to others its tight, focused nature, along with the concept that multiple work items are going to be flowing through these phases at their own pace, not in waterfall. I think it's a really good visualization for us to adopt in our training, coaching, and communications. And of course, it's easy to visualize how work items move through swim lanes, but TSP invites us to realize that latent bugs do too. I mean, we're not perfect, and so we inject a small percentage of mistakes in everything we create. What we know is the sooner we find them, the easier they are to fix. So, for example, while coding, you might make an off by one error in a loop. But if you catch it immediately with test-driven development, the cost to fix is almost zero. A more difficult problem could be a poorly designed API that causes things to break during component integration. Now you might have to redo several days worth of work. And of course, some of the most expensive bugs to fix will be ones where we misunderstood what it was that the customer needed and got all the way through the process and didn't find out until we got the product in their hands. Now, this, of course, is what Agile was made for. I mean, lean Agile methods turned development strategy on its head to optimize for that exact kind of defect. The defect that we had found in the 90s was the most expensive one to deal with. So by delivering functionality quickly and continually, Scrum enables very rapid feedback from end users, and this is its superpower. I mean, in theory, a misunderstood customer requirement could possibly not cause more than one sprint's worth of rework. But I would say end users aren't the only people who can provide rapid feedback or valuable feedback. Our team members can too. Shouldn't we try to get rapid feedback from each other? So TSP takes a look at this and says, we traditionally identify a minimum viable product as the simplest thing that we can show to the customer to provide value and gather feedback. But the same concept applies during development. What is the simplest thing I can create and show to my team members to make progress and gather feedback? This, I'll call it minimum viable internal development product, is probably some sort of a design. So to enable rapid feedback loops, the smartest thing is to create that tiniest thing first and share it with coworkers for feedback. They will very often give us great insights on ways to make it better, simpler, etc. Then we can use that early feedback to course correct and build the next smallest thing and then get feedback on it. Your coworkers are smart people and they have different perspectives on how the system fits together. And their ideas can help you produce something better and faster. The end result is that when you deliver value to the customer, you can deliver it even faster than before and with less technical debt. And I'll just point out that all of these things in the TSP internal feedback loops fit into a single one of these white lines on the Agile side. So these rapid feedback loops allow us to be more agile. The key shift in mindset is that peer reviews aren't roadblocks or quality gates. They're rapid feedback loops taken to a whole new level. When a team finds a set of steps and feedback loops that work for them, we call that a repeatable process. So repeatable processes are powerful, so it's exciting to introduce them to new teams. But here I have another bit of advice for the high maturity coaches in the room. We're often really proud of a process that we've been refining over the years and excited to share it with a new team. But if a new team is trying a process for the first time, Our fancy process with 15 steps and 6 quality feedback loops is just going to trigger a deer in the headlights response. So I'm going to champion the idea of a minimum viable process. If you're coaching a new team or if you're creating training materials, why not start with the simplest process possible? Maybe just a few steps and one quality review. Then coach the team on how to do good peer reviews. We all know that a bad peer review is worse than no review at all. But good reviews are game changers and can help the team to have an aha moment about building quality through rapid feedback loops. So once the team has experienced this epiphany, you can coach them into expanding their process and adding quality feedback into more places. So I'll take this one step further. When a team first starts out and they're just beginning to use peer reviews and inspections, it may take them a while to find their rhythm. And until they do, reviews may still feel like speed bumps. So I would like to propose a way to streamline those based on the best practices that we can learn from continuous integration. First, just like test-driven development makes us design our code in ways that it's testable, I would suggest that our repeatable processes can inspire us to structure our work to be inspectable or reviewable. For example, you can proactively subdivide the work that you create so it makes it possible to push forward on one piece work while you wait for your peers' feedback on another. Now, second, I think we should really embrace automated tools to manage our flow of inspections like a backlog. And the same thing applies for feedback coming back. This can really shorten handoffs and turnaround times. And finally, with all due apologies to Fagan, I'm going to propose a new streamlined parallel approach to peer review. Here's the idea. When peers pick up a product to be reviewed, I'd like to encourage them to do a first pass, very high level review and send any initial findings back to the author as soon as possible. The author can begin working on that feedback right away. And then, as time allows, the inspectors can go back and perform a more in-depth review, looking for more nuanced problems. That can happen in parallel with the author's work on the initial feedback. So, of course, inspectors should record their findings in those online review tools as they go. And this will empower the author to work through those findings like a backlog. Now, I'm excited about this idea, but I appreciate that it might not be appropriate for everything, especially for high-profile work items that deserve the highest level of scrutiny. But I'm excited that it could be a new model to help mature teams accelerate their rapid feedback loops. So these are just a few of my simple ideas on ways to help high maturity teams be more agile and vice versa. But there's room for us to do so much more. I am still sold on the outrageous commitment to change the world. And I know many of you are too. I mean, that shared passion is the very reason the Software Excellence Alliance exists. So I'd like to revisit the slide I showed earlier and pause and ask an important question to all of you. What's missing from this diagram? Anyone? There's nothing in the bottom right corner. The
It's
bottom
true.
right corner.
Are you looking for the right answer?
So what I want to point out is that for the past 20 years, the high maturity community has been saying TSP and Agile are complementary, so you don't need to choose. You can do both. But then we leave the exercise of doing both as an exercise to the reader. This is a problem for at least 3 very important reasons. First, every individual, every team, every coach, every organization is tasked with working out the detail of how these two concepts mesh. I mean, it's an unnecessary reproduction of resources to make everyone redundantly do all of that integration work. And second, we're opening a new door to failure. Remember all of those poor heavyweight processes that arose when different organizations read CMM and tried to implement it. We're creating the same opportunity here. And although some organizations, like say ISHP, have risen to the challenge and brilliantly integrated the two, there are others that didn't manage to crack the code and maybe are no longer with us. And of course, there are other organizations that are somewhere in the middle, missing out on synergies just because they haven't had the time to flesh those integrations out yet. And finally, since we all created our own independent integrations down here, we no longer have a shared vocabulary as a community to talk about this thing in the bottom right corner. Going back to the marriage counselor analogy, we spent our last decade as a community talking about TSP and Agile and frequently misunderstanding each other because the words mean different things. Fortunately, we have in our community and in this room today a wealth of experience from people who know how to do both. So I call upon us to come together and create this missing piece. I'd invite the folks in the high maturity community to take another look at TSP and consider how we can update it to fully embrace modern Agile methods and practices. We can come together and share all the lessons we've learned over the years in our individual integration efforts and produce a set of TSP practices that are fully Agile ready. And I'd like to reach out to the preeminent Agile experts we have in this room. With your extensive expertise in successful Agile transformations, we would love to partner with you. But this time, you wouldn't just be transforming an individual organization or team. You'd be transforming an entire industry. I have had the privilege of getting a start on these ideas, working with several people in the community, most notably Julia Mullaney, Alan Willett, and Dave Webb, Jeff Schwab. And we've gotten a start on these ideas. And we've been calling this new integrated paradigm exceptional Agile. I am so excited about the possibilities that this brings. I mean, first, just sharing the integrations that we've all built so far as a community will allow everyone in the community to benefit from the solutions that others have found. And with a new shared foundation, we'll have a common vocabulary and a common framework to discuss continual improvements. Now, the broader industry, software industry, still faces real challenges, quality, dependability, and productivity that we happen to have found some pretty powerful solutions for. When they see a product and solution they can recognize that embraces their vocabulary and their hard-won lessons learned, they'll be more likely to adopt it. And that is how we can change the world, starting with ourselves. So what would be involved in this transformation? For a moment, I'm going to talk directly to the high maturity community. Just on the surface level, this could include adopting modern vocabulary. Like, we don't need to keep using the word postmortem when the entire industry already knows what the word retrospective means, right? But also, it would include updating our processes to fold in modern best practices. For example, what would the PSP process look if it had test-driven development baked in? I'd like to know. Or how does a team intelligently balance the concepts of sprint planning, weekly meetings, and daily stand-ups, and where does data fit in? Or when teams adopt continuous integration and continuous delivery, what does that do to a TSP concept like system test? And what data should we be collecting? And how can we use the data that comes out of those continuous integration pipelines? All great questions, and ones that we can work on together. And finally, and most important, this transformation would include embracing incremental adoption of TSP practices. I want to know, what are the minimum viable sets of TSP practices that a team can start with? And then, what are the smallest incremental steps they can take to add a practice and still get value? Now, this is a big transformation and it'll require changes to our coaching methods, training materials, and tools. But the Agile heroes that we have here in the room with us today can be instrumental in helping us see our blind spots and drawing upon their past successes to help us improve every aspect of the framework. I would love nothing more than for our communities to come together to pursue this transformation, and in the very near future, release the Exceptional Agile Manifesto. I mean, the industry faces challenges today that never stop growing in urgency and complexity. Our two communities have complementary solutions that the industry desperately needs. I think if we bring these together, we are truly positioned to change the world and take agility to the next level. And so with that, I'd like to hear from you. What do you think? Please unmute and chime in.
Hey, David, this is Dave Webb. Just remembering way back in Watts's original PSP book, he said, until we get to a point where the software engineering environment can capture most of the data automatically, this is probably going to be a difficult thing to implement. This was a long time ago that he wrote that, before he did the updated versions of the book. But I still think that's true. I think that there's some inherent humanisms that make it difficult to collect some of the data that are useful to us. And then you and I have done some data analysis and found out that some of the things that we thought were very important turned out to fall out of the data set. So I think one of the key things we need to do is as we push forward and try to integrate these two, which I think is a brilliant idea, is identify those things which are most important to collect before we say what's the easiest to collect, right?
Agreed. What's the most important to collect? And I would also say, what can we do with the data that we have?
Right.
It's within the TSP community, our introduction process for the past 20 years has been very technically or very literally waterfall. You know, we put everybody through training before they start their first project, and there's a lot of upfront investment. And so, but I mean, it stands to reason all of the things that make up PSP and TSP existed before PSP and TSP came along. TSP just brought them all together. So if they existed before they came along, they're still usable as standalone ideas. And so let's talk about how we can introduce those standalone ideas as gradual changes, and then allow them to have synergy as they snap together when teams begin using more than one.
Well,
Thank
let
you,
me ask
David and
the,
Dave. Oh,
go ahead.
go ahead, Bill.
I was gonna say, let me ask
I'm
the
after
hard
Bill.
question. Let me ask the difficult question. We can assume that the practices and the things that we do are separable and each have value, but I could also frame it differently. Which edge of the scissors cuts the paper, or which piece of the watch is most important? Which of those gears?
Absolutely.
So it comes to how would we know?
You know, one of the things that I love about our community, we're all engineers and we're all racing in to solve the trickiest problem. But I think the fact of the matter is that as a community, we spent the past 20 years doing these integrations, coming up with ways to use PSP and TSP together. It's just a shame that we've all done them one at a time. And that by not coming together and creating a shared common integration, we don't have a way to continually improve that common integration any larger than one organization at a time. You know, as a community, we're so proud of the fact that I can say something like, I have a cost performance index of 1.01, and everybody else in the TSP community understands exactly what I mean, and they can clap and applaud me for it. All of the amazing things we've done in the bottom right corner of that diagram, we can't share our successes with each other because we don't have a common framework. We don't have a common vocabulary. Let's just make that thing. Now, I see Dave McKenna has unmuted, so I'm going to ask him to chime in.
Let Alan go first. I want to hear what he has to say.
Okay.
Oh, thanks, Dave. So, Mr. Tuma, in the lower right-hand corner, I knew where you were headed, so I wasn't going to interrupt you. But what I was thinking was missing in the lower right-hand corner was results. And, is Mr. Wall in the house? Mr. Wall.
I am.
Let's have a little fun here. I just want to note the gaming industry. Anybody aware of the Grand Theft Auto? Anybody out there heard of Grand Theft Auto? Brad? Anybody? Okay, good, cool. Anybody notice the latest news about it? That it was delayed? It's already been delayed twice by over a year. It was just delayed one more year.
Get out!
And
Software being late.
Shocking.
Okay,
I know.
and this is a $2 billion franchise, how much Grand Theft Auto has made. It's delayed 2 years for the next release. So this is billions of dollars of revenue that we're talking about. And what they talked about there was they had to do more polish before it was ready for the public, which says to me severe quality issues. Now, Dan Wall is in the house. He actually saved Vicarious Visions from their quality issues. When you saw that announcement, Dan, did you think it was quality issues? Just curious.
Actually, Alan, I did not see the announcement.
Oh, you got to take a look at it. But if you hear they need to polish it more, what would you assume?
I would assume that that's quality issues for sure. Yeah.
So anyways, I just think there's a rubric that if there's part of any manifesto, etc. I know Agile helps people feel better. Sorry.
I feel great.
Me too. I'm going so fast. To me, it's the results thing. And if Dan Wall could get people, artists with, tattooed from head to knee, tracking defects in the artwork for games, we can do anything. Once people understand the power of the results and that they have ownership over the power of the results. So, Dave, I hope I didn't preempt you with what you wanted to talk about, but
Kinda, but that's okay.
I'm done with my rant. Although, Dan, I got to talk to you more about this because I'm going to be sending a letter to Grand Theft Auto because I'm going to save them. Like you
Okay.
did. So,
Alan did touch on what I was going to say. The bottom line is, to me, the agile part of it is enabling the humans to be high performing, right? We build high performing teams. We try to preach things that kind of go against what we learned in 90s software development where I worked, where it's you drive the teams to exhaustion to get things out the door and all that kind of thing. Well, agile came around, put that on its head, and said, the teams are the experts. They know how to build the software. Let them, right? And that's the kind of the way that went. But where I work, which is the mainframe software division of Broadcom, we have to have some kind of discipline around the engineering practices and the quality. Because I like to say, we work with every Fortune 1000 company in the world as a mainframe, right? Most of our software is running there. So when our stuff has bugs, it's on CNN in the morning. But when you see things like, oh, guess what? The last time I think we had a bad one was when all the ATMs went down in Europe. It was us, one of my products, right? And I was like, oh, so every time I hear something
Dave,
like,
ouch.
yeah, I know. So that kind of forces you to focus on quality, right? But what David was saying kind of resonates with me because I would love to help you guys build a new manifesto that centers around agile practices, mixed kind of like this, but good engineering practices, right? So I think that's a lot of what the agile guys miss, right? They'll say things like code reviews, that's waterfall. It's not. It makes sense, right? Or the stuff you're putting in looks like gates. I don't like gates. I'm agile. No, once again, that kind of stuff all makes sense. And guess what, kids? The world's changing again. AI is going to put everything on its head once again. But the way I kind of explain AI is it'll enable you to do things faster, either good or bad, right? And we want to focus on the good, not the bad. And everything I like to tell people is, and you guys disagree, please do. If I would play an agile bot in chess, it would beat me every time. But I'm pretty confident it would never beat me in poker because it can't deal with my quirky humanness to figure out what I'm doing with the cards, right? We still have to deal with the quirky humanness, and that's why we're not going to all be replaced by AI bots someday. It's the humans that build things, it's the humans that are creative, and it's the humans at the end that deliver value, like Alan was talking about. So This is a great idea. I like it. I'd love to be involved in it because I think this is the next step, right? I think if we put some discipline around both engineering practices and Agile and come up with a manifesto and a way to do it that makes sense in the modern world, which is going to just get, you know, break just so much faster very soon, if not already with AI getting involved in what we do. I think that it makes sense to do something like this.
Mr. Tuma, are we way off track on what you want to talk about? Or are we in line
No,
here?
this is great. This is great. Let's Jeff, I see that you've been patiently waiting. Jeff Bolsini, why don't you chime in?
Well, the couple of things resonated with me. You know, one was what Ellen said about results, and the other was, you know, this as Dave said, you know, unfortunately we're dealing with a bunch of human beings here. And then the third item, of course, Dave, was you're saying as a bunch of engineers, we always like to jump in and solve the toughest things first, right? And you know, all that kind of came together to say that whatever the final product we deliver is, I think we have to almost have a matrix of, you know, the results you want, the tools that you want to employ, and go at it that way, because every time we walk into a new organization, you know, they have their way of doing things. I mean, if I walked into your organization and said, Dave, we're going to throw this TSP stuff away and we're going to try this new stuff, right? You know, oh my goodness, yeah, that just, you know, it just wouldn't fly. So we're constantly dealing with this cultural change, and that's the thing. I think if we get together and start to do this, we focus on the results that we're looking for, and make the roadmap flexible enough that we can go into an organization, play to their strengths, and then improve as they go along. Because it's not going to be a big bang. You're right.
Absolutely. And you know, different organizations have different priorities. So that there could be some organizations that the ultimate priority is absolute customer flexibility. The customer needs to change from sprint to sprint on what they need. And then there's others where they have a desperate need for predictability that they don't have. And so the tools that different teams use are going to be different. And so we need to make it through that incremental approach. Incremental, there doesn't just have to be one path across the rocks in the river. I mean,
Right.
you ought to be able to pick and choose the things that your team needs, and not be saddled with the ones you don't. Marty's got her hand up.
David, I'm going to help you facilitate. Barty's definitely next, but I've noticed we're engineers, so a lot of people have unmuted as a very subtle way to raise their hands. I see Dan, I see Michael, and I see Mr. Swab. So make sure you get them as well.
Why was I Mr.?
Oh, that's right.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're 7 months younger than me.
The honorable in Hawaii, Mr. Swab. Barty, go ahead. I'm so happy to see you, Barty.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I just wanted to share our organization's experience. So as David mentioned, we are high maturity CMMI level 5 company for the last 15 years. So we had little bit of challenge to move to Agile way. So what we realized over the years is some of the teams who have been using our high maturity practices for a number of years, they're really self-managed teams. So during the retrospectives, we have seen that the teams themselves come up with the best integration of both the worlds. So one of the things that David just now shared is what we are actually piloting right now. So we were pure TSP, PSP with the peer reviews, tracking defects and giving it for rework, waiting for rework to be done, and then plotting it in an SPC chart to figure out whether it is under control, whether we are getting good results. So, for example, Steve and I, we were very reluctant to let that thing go because we could see whether we are getting good results. So when the teams presented us that, you know, we are not getting that much value by tracking defects, we want to do continuous integration. So they actually showed us how we can mesh the two. So they started exactly like how David was mentioning, through continuous integration. They give the feedback in the Git, that's what they're using. Git, in the feedback itself, they are adding the comments and they are doing the rework there. And now slowly we have gotten away from the idea, or trying to get away from the idea, that every defect has to be tracked. So what we are saying is we are going to use the number of comments and the size, new and change lines of code. And for the senior management satisfaction, we are going to take that data to plot SPC charts and to see how our processes are doing and how our results are going to be. Whereas for the developer, it's a big win because it is continuous development. They are not waiting for anything. They're not sitting and tracking defects. They're not waiting for somebody to say, yes, we are done with the peer review. So it's going to be super fast. So I think it's a when we let go of that, oh, we cannot track defects, we are willing to explore the fact that, okay, this is a new way of doing. And the developers understand why we are reluctant not to let go of tracking of data, because they understand that we want to see how the process is performing. So they said that, you know what, we are the developers, we are in a better position to see how our processes are working. So they themselves have taken up that duty, or a responsibility as part of their role, as part of the TSP role, to see how the peer review process is working based on they are using their own metrics, but the tool is generating all the metrics. So it is nothing extra. They are leveraging the data that Git is giving. And that's a big shift for us, and which needed a lot of change in mindset from both the team as well as from the management. That's what I wanted to share.
Congratulations. Congratulations. That sounds like a wonderful, like agile transformation success story, just to that peer review part. So kudos. Dan, Dan Lytle, would you like to go next?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think this is a great concept, and I'm really glad to attend today. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I've been thinking about. The main ones are the manifesto, with the volatility and uncertainty, with digital transformation, AI, a lot of different changes coming in. I think some of the things that we talk about during, within TSP as well as Agile, but we don't dig into it, is communication. Sharing retrospectives, the challenges and innovations, breaking down the silos, and also bringing in the communications, like the peers, the multiple stakeholders, the end users. They all have a part in whatever product that we're creating, and they should have skin in the game. So my mind's kind of thinking around those. How do we get everybody engaged? And then also one of your comments about a shared language. How do we get a tool that is tool agnostic, that for the data, bringing that in, and just making data decisions, but it doesn't matter what tool we're using, because as it was mentioned, we go into a company or even another team across the street. They're using different tools, different methodologies, they're different ways of working, and that's okay. And that's the way we want it, as long as they're effective and efficient, and have continuous improvement. Let them go. But how do we capture those metrics, so we all are talking about this, in the same language, as well as making data related decisions. But I mean, that's my mind is keeps churning. But yeah, I think this is a good venture.
Fantastic. I, I, and I totally resonate. Being a tool developer, I totally resonate with all of your tool questions. And if it helps, I've spent the last 20 years thinking about them, and so I've got some great ideas on how we can address some of those things. But it's like, of course, I could use the help of the rest of the community to figure out all of the challenging pieces and all the pieces that are people related and not tool related, because my marriage counseling skills only go so far. One thing that I'd like to maybe point out, Bill Nichols. I know that Bill has been doing some really fascinating work on the metrics that come out of current, um, mainstream Agile tool pipelines and ways that we can interpret those um, to like get some higher maturity out of it. So, maybe Bill, you can speak to that a little.
Well, it's a big challenge right now, and part of the lesson is you need to step back and get a bigger picture. You can't just take what's coming out of the pipeline and get much useful interpretation. You have to step back and be able to go into things like the Git repository. What kind of code is coming in? What has been touched? You need to understand uh, what are the stories that are actually flowing through the system? How much of this is actually new work? How many of these stories are bugs? It's a complicated problem in the sense that it doesn't really lend itself to being totally reductionist. You've got to take kind of an overall view.
Keep the conversation going, and Michael.
Thanks. This is my second or third time joining you guys, so it's really, really interesting to hear everybody talk. I want to commend David for correctly saying continual improvement. The whole industry says continuous improvement, and they use the word wrong, and that's what Deming taught us, that it's continual, right? Raindrops fall continually, water flows continuously. Improvements happen as individual events. I've been a big fan of Deming, like all of us probably. I've studied him for the last decade, and he brought one of the biggest elements he brought to Japan was systems thinking. And he says something very profound that most people didn't quite catch. He said that good management optimizes the process so that it produces the maximum output. Bad management just says, we need results. And if you understand and digest what he's talking about, it's extremely profound. He said you can take any production process and you can abstract it out to repeatable steps. And then you can put a quality structure around each repeatable step. And that is the true definition of total quality management that Ford did not understand. Ford said every employee is responsible for quality. And that's what a lot of the books in the Agile lean space talk about. Oh, we want test-driven development. We want, programmers that, and it's like they kind of missed the boat. Deming talked about you abstract every repeatable step and you create a structure that we're all using, whether it's some, TSP, PSP, Scrum, or whatever you're doing, some kind of ops kind of thing. And you create a structure that's all the repeatable steps. And that the wonderful thing about like a standard set of standard operating procedures that we know nobody reads is it gives you a hook to hang additional information on. And that's only part of the challenge. The other part of the challenge is capturing institutional knowledge so that as people move on and progress and Bitcoin out of your process, you've captured the information institutionally. And so lessons learned and whatnot, so other people can show up later and start executing at that level of service that the company has learned about over their own personal experience over time for each repeatable step. And that way you can really move from, operating at the best level of the people you've hired into a world-class environment where you're actually able to put all of your people inside of a self-auditing environment. And so you end up with, a structure around the requirements process or structure around the architecture process, a structure around the component design process, structures around the different levels of testing, and those structures continue to learn based on mistakes that happen along the way and problems that occurred. You figure out the root cause of the problem, which repeatable step did it occur in, and you add that to the knowledge base of that particular step, and then you have a way that people can work inside of those repeatable steps in a self-auditing manner, kind of like code reviews or architecture reviews or requirements reviews. And so they get better and better at not making omissive mistakes. And so you have fewer fires to put out downstream, and pretty soon your team's executing at near 100% capacity because they're not chasing their tail anymore. And that's what Deming brought to Japan. They were able to do that in the electronics industry and then the car industry. And he took it to Ford briefly. Ford has forgotten about a lot of that stuff now, unfortunately. But that's really the key to what you guys are talking about. And that's yeah, that's my comment.
Okay,
So.
fantastic. Thank you. It's good to see so many people commenting, posting in the comment sections about I'm in, let's do this. It makes me excited for what's coming next, and I'm just thrilled at the opportunity to work with you all on this, what I see as transformational opportunity for us to change the world. So